You're watching Republic TV. I'm Crispino Nunes. Now, Taliban's crackdown on dissent comes to the forefront as the Interior Ministry of the new Taliban government is seeking to end protests in Afghanistan after days of demonstrations that have brought heavy-handed assaults on protesters. The minister has issued an order to end all protests in the country unless demonstrators get prior permission, including approval of slogans and banners. We take a look. My colleague Nupur joins us from the Afghan desk.
Right, absolutely, Crispino. As you're pointing out, of course, this is perhaps being seen as a tightening of reins by the Taliban, because we have seen protests by women as well as several other groups across Kabul. Now, what the Taliban essentially is aiming to do right now is, in a sense, to crack down on escalating protests and also perhaps give a sense to people that they are now firmly in control. Now, what the Interior Ministry, which is, by the way, headed by, Sirajuddin Haqqani of the Haqqani network, has in a statement said that you will need to take prior permission from the Taliban government before you can go out and protest. He goes on to say that this is an order to end all protests in the country unless demonstrators get prior permission, including approval of slogans and banners. Now, the significant part is not just the fact that they have banned protests, but also if you were to go ahead with one, you will have to get all the content that's even written on banners as well as the slogans you use against the government to be approved by the government priorly. Now, in this scenario, it is extremely unlikely then that women protesters who've been seen hitting the streets for quite some time now will actually be allowed to protest. Now, this, of course, is being seen as a continuance of the policies that the Taliban has had towards women in the country since, they first came to power in 1996, actually, till their regime was ended by the US in 2001. Back to you, Crispino.
But we have seen many casualties during the protests in Afghanistan, and protests are escalating, especially in Kabul. Especially women protesters who are on the streets have vowed not to die down. Highlight some of the protests right now in Afghanistan, and why did the Taliban had to issue such a decree?
Well, absolutely. The point that the Taliban government wants to make by issuing a decree like this is to send out a message to the international community as well as, to its own people in Afghanistan that they are firmly in the saddle now and that they are in control. Now, one of the, brutal weapons that the Taliban has always used is to muffle protests and to muffle women, especially. So this perhaps is a continuance of that policy that we've seen when they were first in power from 1996 to 2001. And now that the new government, they have declared themselves. And of course, we have seen the kind of people that have been put in place in the government. So perhaps this is being seen as their attempt to tighten their reins over the country.
All right, Rupert, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. We're going to continue tracking those latest developments from Kabul.